Hey y'all, it's Saturday, and this week's topic is preferences and transphobia. So basically, if someone's sexual or romantic preferences could potentially be transphobic. And in my mind, the answer is clearly yes. There are two types of preferences that I would say are transphobic, and that's blanket avoidance and fetishization. Blanket avoidance is when people say, I would never date a trans person. And the reason that that's transphobic is because when you say, I would never date a trans person, you're basically minimizing or generalizing what trans people are and what trans people can be to your idea of transness. Say if it was a heterosexual woman who was attracted to men and they said they would never date a trans man, it might be because they think that trans men aren't masculine enough, or they think that they wouldn't be able to have sex with a trans man because of his genitalia, or she thinks that the relationship dynamic with a trans man would not be the same as it would be with a cis man. And the fact is that that is a huge generalization, and it makes a lot of assumptions about trans people that aren't true and wouldn't necessarily apply. Like, all trans people are different. So when you say you would never date a trans person, you're basically making the assumption that trans people, like, as a whole, share certain qualities which you are unattracted to, or which you would not be able to reconcile in a relationship. And the fact is that there are no qualities that trans people have that are universal for all trans people. Like, if you would say, I would never date a trans person because I'm not attracted to their genitals, like, there are trans people who are post-op. So that doesn't apply. Like, any qualifier that would make you say, I would never date a trans person, there are going to be exceptions to that because all trans people are different. It's being transphobic because you're stereotyping trans people and you're making it sound like we are all one thing and we all have the same experiences and we all, like, look the same or act the same or we have the same bodies. Like, it's just ridiculous. Which is not to say if you don't date a trans person, you're transphobic, because TERFs tend to, like, take it the other way, where it's like, if you say you wouldn't date a trans woman, then you're transmisogynistic. That doesn't mean you have to date a trans woman. You could say, I've never been attracted to a trans person, or I've never dated a trans person, and it's perfectly fine to not be attracted to a trans person or not want a relationship with a trans person that you meet. But to say that you would not date a trans person, like, blanket any trans person, even ones you have not met, then you're minimizing trans people down to some aspect of transness that is not even really existent, because there's no aspects of transness that are universal for all trans people. So it's like, what about trans people is making you say that you wouldn't be attracted to them? And I just think it's very suspicious, and I just think that if someone thinks that they would never date a trans person, then they really need to, like, think about why that is, and think about, like, what is motivating them to say that, and what do they think about trans people that they find unattractive. Like, what stereotypes do they have in their head that they think make trans people unattractive? And obviously when it comes to sex, like, that's a whole other ballgame. I'm also not saying, like, you have to have sex with trans people, obviously. And when it comes to genitalia that people aren't comfortable with or aren't attracted to, like, I do think that to some degree that is a legitimate thing. But I've also met, like, a ton of people who thought that, and then they fell in love with a trans person, and all of a sudden it wasn't an issue. So, like, I'm not saying that you have to be attracted to trans people. Obviously, you don't have to be attracted to trans people, but just be mindful of, like, the way you talk about trans people and, like, the assumptions that you make about them. Just because you've never felt attracted to a trans person does not mean it couldn't happen, you know? And even the idea that a person who is monosexual or only attracted to cis people normally, that they would not be able to be attracted to a certain set of genitals on a trans person is usually stemming from the association with genitals and gender. Like, you think, like, I couldn't have sex with a trans man because I couldn't have sex with, like, girl parts. Like, as offensive as that is, Because I know gay men say that a lot. Like, cis gay men, they're like, I could never handle that. And also, like, lesbians think that having sex with a trans woman would be equivalent to having sex with a man. And the fact is that, like, a trans man's genitals are not the same as a cis woman's genitals. And a trans woman's genitals are not the same as a cis man's genitals. And the way they have sex and, like, it's just not the same. Like, as someone who has had sex with trans people, having sex with a trans man is not at all the same as having sex with a cis woman. And having sex with a trans woman is not at all the same as having sex with a cis man. Like, having sex with a trans woman is like having sex with a woman, and having sex with a trans man is like having sex with a man. You think that just because the parts are like came out of the factory the same, that they are the same, and the way they use them are the same, and that's just not the way it is most of the time. But moving away from the sex aspect, I went more into that than I planned to. I might wind up cutting that out. But yeah, again, I am not saying you have to be attracted to trans people. I'm not saying you have to date trans people, or if a trans person asks you out or wants to have a relationship with you and you're not attracted to them, that you have to feel bad if you turn them down. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that don't generalize trans people. Basically, that's what I'm saying. It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with your relationships. You can do whatever. You can sleep with trans people. You can not sleep with trans people. You can whatever. But just when you're talking about trans people and when you're talking about who you're attracted to, don't generalize trans people. And because, like, what do all trans people have in common other than the fact that they identify as a trans person or have a trans history? Nothing. We have nothing in common other than being a trans person. So what you have a problem with is trans people. It's just being trans. That's what you have a problem with, and that's transphobic. So moving now to the complete polar opposite of that, the polar opposite of blanket avoidance, which is fetishization. Fetishization is also extremely transphobic for the exact same reasons that I stated for blanket avoidance. Fetishization, if you don't know what that means, basically means people who say, I would only date a trans person. Like, I would only date either a trans man or a trans woman or a non-binary person. That's fucked up, and that really bothers me. That probably actually bothers me more than people who just avoid dating trans people, because it's like, if you avoid dating trans people, then, like, trans people don't want to date you anyway, so, like, whatever. But fetishizing people are, like, really damaging, and they tend to, like, make you think that they're chill and they're, like, down with trans people and they know all this stuff and they're, like, totally cool with you. And then you realize that, like, the only reason they're attracted to you is because you're trans, which is fucked up. And as a non-binary person, as an androgen specifically, you would think that that's not something that I have to deal with, but you would be wrong, because androgyny is a huge fetish with a lot of people. And I've totally had people try to make friends with me or contact me on dating sites and things like that, just being like, yo, androgyny is, like, super hot. And saying that they wanted to get to know me because they wanted to know someone who was non-binary, or that they found me attractive because of that. I mean, like, obviously, like, I want my gender validated, and if someone finds me attractive, I want them to find me attractive as a non-binary person, but to, like, seek me out and want to initiate a romantic or sexual relationship with someone based solely on the fact that they are transgender is really fucked up, because you are, again, it's minimizing people to one aspect of their identity, which is exactly the same thing that blanket avoidance does, and it's making the assumption that there is something that all trans people have in common, which is not true. Like, even for trans men, like, if you want to have sex with them or you want to have a relationship with them because you think you know what their body is like, you don't, because all trans men's bodies are different. Like, some are pre-T, some are on T, some are post-T, some are not going to go on T, some have been on T for years, some people are post-op, some people are pre-op, some people are non-op for top surgery and bottom surgery. Like, their bodies don't look the same, and their personalities certainly are not the same. And that goes for trans women, and that goes for non-binary people. So if you are seeking out a relationship with a trans person based solely on the fact that they're trans, that is fucking transphobic. And yeah, I hope this wasn't too ranty. It was probably pretty ranty. TLDR, you should always be attracted to the person before the qualifiers. Or unattracted to the person before the qualifiers. Like, be unattracted to a trans person because they're an asshole. Don't be unattracted to a trans person because they're trans, you know? I don't know. I don't know if I'm making any sense. I don't know if this video made any sense. I hope that I get this up on time, and that's pretty much all I had to say. And I will see you next week. Peace out.